Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. My name's Bethany and today we're going to be doing the mid-year book freakout tag, and I'm so excited to share some of my favorite books from this year so far. I've just really been looking forward to this video. So let's get started. Okay, so the first question is your favorite book of the year so far. So that for me is These Silent Woods by Kimmy Cunningham Grant. And this will probably be my favorite book for the whole year. I've had a lot of books that I've really enjoyed this year, but nothing has come close to this book. I don't even know why I loved it so much, but I really do. She is also a new favorite author for me. So for all these questions today, because I am the way that I am making myself only pick one book for each question, and then I'm also not repeating books or authors for the questions. So I've narrowed it down, I've got it on my list, good to go. But so there is a question later on about new favorite author, and so I picked somebody else, but Kimmy is an auto by author for me now. She only has 2 novels and I've read them both. The other one I read after this one, which is an older one. I think it was called Fallen Mountain. I don't remember exactly. This one was definitely my favorite, but I enjoyed the other one, and this book just made me really like her. I loved the character development and the way she told the story, the way she unraveled the mystery in it. I don't even know what genre to call this, to be honest. Definitely my favorite for the year. The next question is a favorite sequel that I did not write these down. I have still only read one sequel, so that's gonna be the one. I did enjoy it though. It was Finley Donovan Knocks 'Em Dead. The first and second book in this series were so good and just comfort reads, and exactly what I needed at the time to kind of get out of a slump after reading some books that I wasn't crazy about. So yeah, El Casamano is the author of those, and they are so good, just so good and entertaining, and I really liked those. So that's the second one. The third question is a book that was released this year that I still want to read but haven't yet, and that one is Della and Darby by Susanna B. Lewis. This I think came out in February, and I did pre-order it because I read Bless Your Heart Ray Sutton by Susanna B. Lewis this year and really loved this. This was another one of my favorites for the year, so I am excited to try her new one, Della and Darby. This is about sisters. I don't really know anything else about it, but this one was like a contemporary Christian fiction, so I think this will probably be the same, just a family story maybe, but I'm looking forward to it because I really enjoyed her writing. The next question is a new release getting ready to come out that I want to read, and that one is Hello Stranger by Catherine Center, and I'm still making this video before it releases, so it still counts. But I think it releases on the 10th of July, and I actually just placed my book of the month order, and the book of the month had it for July, so I'm getting it through them. I didn't pre-order it because I kind of thought that book of the month might have it. She's a pretty popular author with them, and so I'm so looking forward to that. I really enjoy all of the books I've read of hers, which I don't remember how many I've read, but she just writes really good, entertaining contemporary romance that is usually pretty clean and just has good characters and stories. I don't know much about it at all. I think The girl is in an accident and has face blindness. That is all I know. But I know that Catherine Center writes good books, so I'm excited for that one. Next question is a book that surprised you. This one is Dune, and this is by Carrie Corp and Lori Langdon. And I have had this book for so long. My daughter got it for me for Christmas several years ago, and this is just not the type of book that I would normally pick up. It is kind of like a fantasy romance, I would say. The cover was not appealing to me really. I don't know, it just wasn't one that I thought I would enjoy, but I really did enjoy it. It does have at least one book following it, maybe two, and I haven't really wanted to pick those up. It was good just kind of as a standalone, but it really had me entertained and really had me connected to the characters, and the fantasy was not too hard to understand. I think it's a YA, yeah, and so it was not hard to understand like the magic system, and it wasn't too far-fetched for me. Like, it still felt pretty believable, I guess, in a fantasy way, which sometimes fantasy is hard for me, and I don't read a lot of it, to be honest. So this one surprised me and I really enjoyed it, and I'm glad that I finally read it. I felt bad for leaving it on my shelf for so long when it was a gift, but she understood and she was glad that I enjoyed it when I finally read it. So I think the next question is the biggest disappointment, and I have already unhauled this book, so I don't have it to show, but it is Nightfall by Nancy Mel, and I was really looking forward to this. It like had all sorts of things that I wanted. It's a Christian thriller suspense. It had some like setting in Wichita, Kansas, which I have lived in the past, and so I was excited about that. It had some like cult aspects, which I thought I was excited about. Turns out I wasn't. I did not enjoy that part of it. I just really didn't enjoy it overall. I think the biggest thing for me was that there wasn't a lot of mystery. That was a big problem for me. I did not like the cult. It creeped me out too much, which happens sometimes. And we had the perspective of the serial killer, which I really did not like. And so we also knew who this serial killer was because we had his perspective from the very beginning, and even some of his perspective as a child, which I don't know, I just don't like that. It just creeps me out. And so I read it all, but I just really didn't enjoy it, and I immediately unhauled it. Okay, the next question is a favorite new to you author. So other than Kimmy Cunningham Grant, the other one I chose is Jennifer A. Nielsen. She writes middle grade. I think she has some middle grade, like maybe fantasy, but she also, I think this might have been her first middle grade historical fiction. And so I'm saying she's a new favorite author, even though this is the only book I've read from her so far, but I did purchase her new release. I just feel like I can confidently say, based on my experience with A Night Divided, that I'm going to love her middle grade historical fiction. This book was so good. Her writing, her characters, her explanation of things that were going on in this time in history were just so good. I loved it so much, and I would recommend it for teenagers wanting to learn about events in history. This was set around the Berlin Wall when it went up, and tells the story of this girl and her family who were divided by the wall. Her brother and dad were on the other side when the wall went up, and so they were separated. Their family was separated, and it was just so good. It's a hard but really good story, and I just felt like Jennifer Nielsen did such a good job with it. So all I needed was this one book to be convinced that she's a favorite new author of mine. So, okay, the next question is new fictional crush, which is a hard question to answer, at least for me and this year. And mainly because I've read a lot of like romances that I've enjoyed, but a lot of times those don't stick with me long term. The details about it, and especially the details about like the male lead, just don't really stick with me. So I had a really hard time with this question, and not because like I don't like feel like, you know, swoony over guys in books, but it just doesn't last. So it's fleeting, you know. So for this one, I picked Then There Was You, and the character is Josh Tyler, which I had to look up, to be honest. I don't remember a ton about him, so I'm sure there might have been some things that I didn't like about him. I don't know though. But I really enjoyed this book, and so I wanted it to be on my list, and so I thought, well, I'll put it in this spot. And I do remember just kind of being really captivated by the story and felt really invested in it. So it's a Christian romance, so it had some like themes about church hurt and some of that, which I just really enjoyed. It had grief in it. It was just a really good book overall. So yeah. Okay, the next one is favorite new character, I think. That one was not as hard for me. I did have a lot of favorite like lead characters, but my absolute favorite for the year is Rose in Rain Rain. And this is a middle grade fiction about a girl named Rose who has autism, and she loves homonyms, and she has a dog named Rain, and there's a hurricane and Rain goes missing. And Rose lives with her dad. Her mom is not there. And then she has an uncle, which I almost picked her uncle for my fictional crush, because I do remember him and just really thinking that he was just such a good guy. I did though absolutely loved Rose. I just thought, I felt like I knew her. I felt like she was a real person. I loved her personality. It just felt genuine and real, and I felt like I could relate to Rose. It was such a good book, and because of Rose and how much I just enjoyed her story. Okay, next is a book that made you cry, which I have cried with a few books this year. I don't even remember all of them, but I picked the one that kind of surprised me the most that I cried. So that one is, I have a lot of middle grade on my list. So that one is A Rover Story by Jasmine Warga, and this was the middle grade March group read about a Mars rover from his perspective, and then letters to him from a girl who her mom was working on him. And so this book completely surprised me that it made me cry. It was okay through most of the book, and then the end just really got to me emotionally, and I was very surprised that a book from a robot's perspective was making me so emotional. But it was a good story and I enjoyed it. It wasn't like one of my favorites of the year, but I'll definitely remember it. I also read it aloud to my son, so that was a good memory. And yeah, it was a good experience. Okay, the next question is a book that made you happy. And so I'm picking Love and a Little White Lie by Tammy L. Gray. This is like the most recent romance that I read, Christian romance, and it was just a feel-good book for me. It had heavy topics in it, but it was another one of those books that was kind of a palate cleanser that I read when I was feeling kind of slumpy or not enjoying the books I was reading, and this was just nice and refreshing to read a good, entertaining book that had deep things in it, but then by the end I just like felt good and happy, I guess. So I did buy the second book, and I will be reading that, and I will be reading more by Tammy L. Gray because I really enjoyed this book. Okay, the next question is the most beautiful book you've acquired this year. And this question was so hard because I feel like I've gotten a lot of beautiful books, but I went ahead and chose one that I have read, and it is River Sing Me Home by Eleanor Shearer. I just thought this cover was very beautiful. I love the colors and the river, and I think it's just a beautiful book. I love debuts. Like, it's just fun to see someone write their first book, and I'm not like super picky about books usually, as far as like technical or grammatical stuff. So I can generally look over that, or I don't even notice. So I love new authors. I love supporting new authors. I just think it's great. I get so excited to read authors' debuts. The last question is a book that I haven't got to yet but want to read this year, which, I mean, let's be honest, I have a huge list of books that I want to read this year, but I just picked one that I've been thinking about a lot lately that I just feel like might be really good. I don't really know. It's a little out of my comfort zone. It is A History of Wild Places by Shea Ernshaw. So I've never read Shea Ernshaw. When I read this, the synopsis of this a while back, it didn't sound very interesting to me. It kind of just seemed like a book that I would stay away from. But then Kindle, what is Kindle's channel? Oh my goodness. Okay, well, I'll tag her below. The way that she described it was, she definitely, I think, went into a little bit more detail than whatever I had read. It kind of sounded almost like The Village to me, the movie The Village. And I loved that movie, so I have no idea if it's going to be anything like that, but I like the cover too. And yeah, that's what made me decide. Her description of it made me decide to go ahead and get it. So, and I have been thinking about it a lot lately, so I decided to pick it for the one that I want to read this year. Okay, so those are all the questions, and before I leave, I wanted to share with you guys a picture book because my past two videos I've completely just forgotten to feature a picture book, and we do have a new one that I am loving so much and is beautiful, so I want to share that with you guys. And that is A Little More Beautiful, it's even in the name, by Sarah Mackenzie. So if you don't know who Sarah Mackenzie is, she has a podcast and a website called Read Aloud Revival. She's also written some nonfiction books about reading aloud and homeschooling, and her website, Read Aloud Revival, is just such a great resource for book lists for kids, and picture books, chapter books, like books to read aloud to your kids. She just has introduced me to so many good children's books, and is so encouraging to parents to read aloud to their kids, and like all the benefits that come from that. So anyway, you should check her out. This is her first picture book, and it is so good. So that is A Little More Beautiful by Sarah Mackenzie and illustrated by Breezy Brookshire. Okay guys, so thank you so much for watching. Thank you for being here and watching until the end. I just so appreciate you, and leave me a comment down below about some of your favorite books so far this year, and or if you liked any of the books that I shared, or if you might be trying them out because of me sharing them. So I would love to hear from you, and I'm just so glad that you're here. Have a great day. Bye.